Kathryn Kuhlman. Some of you a little bit more seasoned saints might remember Kathryn Kuhlman. She was a big deal in the 1960s and 70s in the charismatic movement. Highly revered today. Watch this video clip of Kathryn Kuhlman just to give you an idea of who she was if you've not seen her before.
The church is precious. Oh, if you only knew how precious is the church. How precious is the bride of Christ. Only understand. How precious is the bride of Christ. It's the Father's gift to His Son. You can't love without giving, can you? The greatest gift that is possible for Him to give, ye shall receive power.
Just in case you've been sleeping a little too well at night, I wanted to show you that clip so it would haunt your dreams. Kathryn Kuhlman, the world's most famous female faith healer. In 1933, she settled in Denver, Colorado, and started the Denver Revival Tabernacle and was the quote-unquote pastor of that church. Now, I will quote John MacArthur here. If you go to a church with a female pastor, you have neither a pastor nor do you have a church. But something else you'll notice in the charismatic movement, the ladies preach as much as the men do. There's almost as many female preachers in the charismatic movement as there are men. She pastored another church in Pennsylvania. She invited a man named Burroughs Waltrip to come preach at her church. Burroughs Waltrip, however, was a married man. He had a wife and 2 children that he proceeded to leave so that he could be with Kathryn Kuhlman. She was a homewrecker. She was an adulteress, and Burroughs Waltrip was an adulterer. Their marriage only lasted for 7 years. Oddly, Kathryn Kuhlman later denied ever having been married to Burroughs Waltrip. She was asked about it by a reporter, and she said, well, we almost got married, but I passed out before we actually said the wedding vows. Well, that's not true because their wedding certificate is actually on file. It's a matter of legal document. They were indeed married for 7 years, but that was kind of a scandal back in those days. So, I mean, you go through these people, dear friends, you see how many of these God's generals were charlatans, heretics, con artists, and most of them were sexually immoral. Most were sexually immoral. Now, I can already hear the objection. Well, you've got sexual immorality in your own reform camp. Yep, we sure do. Tragically, we do. But there's 2 main differences. One, in our camps, we're not making the claim that God is speaking to us about minute details in other people's lives. Just in the last year or so, we've had some massive charismatic preachers, enormous popularity, fall sexually. Robert Morris, Mike Bickle of IHOP were discovered that they were sexual predators. And the thing is, here's my question. Charismatics claim that God speaks to them, gives them words of knowledge, divine revelation knowledge about minute details in the lives of people around them. And yet God never bothered to give any of them a heads up about what Mike Bickle was doing, about what Robert Morris was doing. And Michael Brown, 2 of the more respected names in the charismatic movement, they sang the praises of both Mike Bickle and Robert Morris. And I'm not laying this at their feet. I'm not saying they should have known. These men were deceived. But here's the problem. In their theology, God talks to them all the time. So God will give you a word of knowledge about someone's bum toe out in the audience, but does not give you a heads up about what is going on in the lives of your closest friends? So that's one difference. We don't make that claim that God is speaking to us. We don't make that claim. They do. And the other difference, in our circles, in our camp, you disqualify yourself sexually, you commit adultery as a preacher in our camp, you're done. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your name is. You're done. Doesn't mean you can't be forgiven. Doesn't mean you can't be restored to fellowship with the local church. But you're no longer behind the pulpit. Ever. In the charismatic movement, you do that in the charismatic movement, you might take a little break. You might be off for a few months or a couple of weeks. Sometimes not even that. You're right back in the preaching saddle. Not in our camp. Rightly so.